tell me about your current role with First Student.
Oh, yes. I am the district manager for Central Michigan. So I oversee 6 locations directly, and have 6 location managers that report to me. And as far as operational commitments, our customer commitments, and negotiating union contracts, CBAs, as well as customer contracts.
Gotcha.
Uh, but also, my territory expands not just in Central Michigan. I also have Northern Indiana with our South Bend location.
Yeah.
And I help throughout the entire state of Michigan with operational items, any challenges that they may have. Because, at the end of the day, I've been doing pupil transportation for the last 20 years. So I've got quite a breadth of experience in that. So
Yeah.
I've been able to support and help the managers through several operational challenges if they've had them. Or sometimes I'm just a shoulder for them to cry on when things are going rough, and provide them with a little bit of relief and sometimes some comedic relief for some of the
Gotcha.
things that are going on.
And I assume, for those that aren't in the student industry, right now is a lot of that shoulder crying time and extra support from your end, because we are right in the middle of schools heading back, and that's our busy season of the year. So, you know, you mentioned how many managers fall under your org chart. How many total employees would be in your district or in your
So
area?
we're looking at in the state of Michigan, we've got about 639 drivers on routes. Plus, we've got managers at all those locations. So, I mean, you're looking at upwards of around close to 700 people that fall underneath
Gotcha.
the whole state of Michigan.
And ultimately the kind of the strategic vision of that region falls on your shoulders, right? I mean, obviously you're doing that through your leaders, but ultimately that's a lot of people that depend on your leadership and your experience to succeed. So no small feat there for sure. How did you find First Student? Talk to me a little bit about, obviously you were in the military. That's why we're here talking today, and we'll get to that in a minute. But talk to me about how you found First Student as an employer.
Well, I had worked directly for school districts for several years, and First Student is the largest pupil transportation provider in the world. I mean, I like to say in the country, but nobody outside of us provides the level of transportation that we do. I mean, at the end of the day, the scope of our company is so large. We provide more rides on First Student buses in a day than the entire U.S. airline industry does combined.
Yeah,
That
yeah, that's a stat that blows me away. Still, every time I hear it, yeah,
Absolutely. And they operate 365 days a year, and we only operate generally 180 days a year.
right.
So we're providing them those kind of rides. But so everybody who's in pupil transportation has heard of First Student just because of the scope and size of the work. And so working directly for the districts, I always had kind of a business mind. I love dealing with the numbers and the budget. I love leading people, and it was a little more of a challenge with the district with some of the red tape that you have to go through with boards of education, and this just seemed like a better fit for me. And a position became available near where I lived, and I applied, interviewed, I got hired, and what I didn't know about it was that unfortunately it was a challenged contract that they had signed 3 years prior, and they were having difficulties with the location manager.
Okay.
Customer service issues. There were service issues with the buses, with the drivers, and just a plethora of issues. So when I got hired, I didn't know that, and I came in and I found out that they gave us a year to turn it around. Um, and
Well, that's not.
so, but well, nonetheless, I said, okay, that's fine. You know what? I'm just going to be me. I'm going to do what I do, and I hope at the end of the year that you'll find that we're a company that you want to stay with. And
Yeah.
not only did they stay with us, they signed a 5-year contract with us at a 15% increase. So
Gotcha.
um,
Wow.
they were
Okay.
extremely pleased with the turnaround there. So that's how I came into First Student. And then we had another contract that was about an hour and a half away from my house that was new, and I thought it would be a new challenge for me. And so I went down and interviewed with that superintendent, and they wanted to bring me on board with First Student and have me as their location manager. And that was another one that they had some service issues before. We were able to turn that around within a week. We had service that was really running out really smoothly. Had a fantastic team at both of the locations that I was at, though.
Gotcha.
That made things so much better. We just to have those folks there that were so committed and dedicated to doing what we were doing. They just needed a little bit of leadership and guidance. And they really took the ball and ran with it. And that's always been my philosophy, right? We've hired people, we put them into these positions, they're getting a paycheck. Um, we're going to let them do their jobs. What we need to
100%.
do is lay out the strategic plan and let them execute the tactical aspects of whatever it is that they need to do on a day-to-day basis and be a support system for them.
Yeah.
So from there, there was an opening for a district manager for our state, and once again applied. And basically, what my role was is to help and support the location managers throughout the state.
Gotcha.
That's really what I was doing at the locations I was developing people and supporting them, and so it seemed like a really good fit.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, coming into a location that is, I say struggling, but I assume that it was far past struggling. And then to turn that around and not only get a contract renewal, but at an increase from the past, I think it demonstrates, number one, your industry knowledge, your competency in the industry. But I more than that, I think it demonstrates that leadership ability that the military is so common for creating in individuals. And obviously, as I said, as I alluded to earlier, you were in the military. You were in the Navy for 7 years. Let's jump into that. Talk to me a little bit about how, a 17, 18-year-old when you joined. Well, talk to me about how you got into the Navy and why the Navy, why you picked the Navy.
Well, I think when I was in high school, what really led me into this was, Desert Storm was going on. And
Okay.
I remember driving home from high school, and I remember seeing all the yellow ribbons tied around the trees.
Yeah.
And everybody's patriotic sense was really coming out in every community that I drove through. And that really led me to say, you know what, I think I want to do something like that and serve my country,
Yeah.
and be a part of something special like that. And so the Desert Storm was over when I went in, but we were still actively involved in items. So I was in during Desert Shield.
Gotcha.
But not only that, I thought about, okay, so I still want to, go in the military, but I want to, be able to live and come out of the military in one piece. So I didn't want to
Right.
be boots on the ground. And so I thought the Navy was going to be a good fit, to put me in a safe position to where I could, continue to go through.
Gotcha.
Um,
Yeah. And not to cut you off, but it's funny. I have a similar kind of origin story with the military, if you will, years later. But 9/11, I was 13 years old. So, coming into high school. And I remember being struck by, the pride of the country, the patriotic kind of sense that flooded, everywhere then. And the one specific thing that I think kind of lit a fire in my mind, or would lead to me joining, was watching the invasion of Iraq, March '03, I think, live on CNN in our living room, at my family home. So, it's interesting how those key moments can kind of plant a seed that years later, turn into a career and learning a lot of skills and whatnot to be successful. So I cut you off there. I apologize, but yeah. So you decide on the Navy. You just walk into the recruiter. Did you know somebody that was in it that you talked to? What's your process look like to signing a contract?
well, another piece of what really got me to join the Navy was this is shortly after Top Gun came out, and I was in love
Okay.
with I was in love with the F-14 Tomcats, and
Okay.
that was the one area that I was going to be able to be around them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what led me into the military, or into
Okay.
the Navy, I should say. I knew I was going in the military, but the Navy itself. And I
Gotcha.
wanted to be on an aircraft carrier, so I knew I needed to do something in aviation. So there was a local recruiting office. I went down and I talked with the gentleman there, told them what my career goals and aspirations were, and I ended up going in as an aviation maintenance administration man. I wanted to be a jet engine mechanic, but
Okay.
they didn't have any of those available. Um, and the guy told me, "Hey, look, just pick this, and then you can go in when you get to boot camp and tell them that you want to do this, and they'll change it." Well, I told them that in boot camp, and then they laughed at me. Um,
Yeah.
so
I've
then
used that line as a recruiter, not intentionally to deceive, but sign an 11 Bravo contract today, and then after you finish training, you just reclass into whatever you wanted to be. But yeah, it's funny that
never works out that way, does it?
never. Uh,
So
No.
Uh, but anyhow, I was really fortunate that I did go in the direction that I did, because that was right at the time that computers were coming of age. I mean, this was
Okay.
in 1991. So by the time I got to the ship, it was around 92. Personal computers were coming in, so I got to do a lot of work on PCs, which really helped set me up for success into what I'm doing now, because I did a lot of Microsoft Word, a lot of Microsoft Excel when they were in their infancy,
Gotcha.
uh, and carried that out throughout my entire career using those. So then, I was assigned to the USS George Washington, which at the time was a pre-commissioned aircraft carrier.
Okay.
And so they were still kind of building it. And at the end of the day, by the time I got there to NAS Norfolk, the ship had left the day before I got there for my orders.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, yeah, so I was a little freaked out. I'm like, oh my God, did I miss ship's movement? They're like, no, your order said to come in today. So you're here today. That's fine. But so I stayed on the base there for about 30 days. And then the day before the ship came in, they flew me out to it. So I
Okay.
got to
Wow.
get the sense of what it was like to catch the tail hook on an aircraft
Yeah.
carrier and land on one, which was pretty cool.
That's your Top Gun moment, I assume, unless there's a lot of flight experience coming in. But I mean, yeah,
Uh,
that's interesting that right off the bat you're
yeah,
landing on an aircraft carrier. For someone that was in the Army, aircraft carriers are fascinating to me. And my only experience is the USS Yorktown on vacations. We'd go down there and see that one, but I can't imagine living on one of those for an extended period of time. So I'm
quite
interested
a
to hear.
challenge. It's
Do
quite a
what?
challenge because the racks that they have there for you to sleep in, they're stacked three high in a berthing area,
Yeah.
and they're 6 foot long, and
Okay.
I'm 6 foot four,
that,
so
that sounds problematic.
it was really awesome.
Gotcha.
But nonetheless, had an amazing time out on the ship. I mean, we did two Persian Gulf tours, so I got to see a lot of different countries. There were some hot spots that were popping up that we were deployed to. We went to the Straits of Hormuz and fired up the Sea
Okay.
Whiz, and I got to see how that go off, and that was really cool.
Hmm.
But we were really just a presence and a force for keeping the peace in the area, and it seemed to do well there.
Gotcha.
Uh, so after I did my tour out there on the USS George Washington, it was time for me to go to my shore duty, and we were out in the middle of a Persian Gulf tour. So then I got to experience being catapulted off the ship to get flown to where I was
There you
going
go.
next. So yeah,
Awesome.
it kind of came full circle, and so it was cool. Then I went to Jacksonville, Florida, to Naval Air Station Cecil Field.
Okay.
Um, and I got to work there in the weapons department with those guys in the bunkers on weapon support equipment, which really is very closely linked to what we do here with people transportation in our buses when we're scheduling things for preventative maintenance,
Yeah.
doing the PMs on them, whether it was the same schedule essentially. It was a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, and 120-day, and
Yeah.
365.
Gotcha.
So I can speak intelligently with the techs in charge that we have at our locations about planning and maintenance and things of that nature.
Yep.
But by no means am I the guy that's going to grab a wrench and go in there and help them, because I mean
Me.
I can take it apart.
Yeah.
I'm not
I
going to
can
be able
get
to put
there.
that together. But unfortunately, this was during Bill Clinton's base realignment and closure program, and they closed a
Okay.
bunch of bases. And Cecil Field was really close to Jacksonville, so they closed down NAS Cecil Field. And then I moved over to NAS Jax for the rest of my time. And I really would have stayed in for as long as I would have been a career person. I absolutely loved my time in the military.
Yeah.
The challenge that I had were the duty stations that they offered me, which was Japan or Japan or,
Gotcha.
or Japan.
Yeah.
And so, and then I did the math on when we would be moving for my seashore rotation, because it was 3 on shore and 4 at sea. And it was going to come up right when my daughter, my oldest daughter, was going to be going into her senior year.
Gotcha.
And then the next time was going to be when my youngest daughter was going into her 11th grade year. And so I really wanted my family to be able to make friends and have friends and not be
Yeah.
moved around as much. So it was a tough decision, but I did decide to get out of the military,
Gotcha.
but took all those lessons with me into what I'm currently doing now.
Yeah, and I think that's a difficulty I didn't have to address, being that I was in the National Guard for all 13 years and some change. I mean, I spent a little over 3 active as a recruiter, but I didn't have to deal with the piece of the military that is, how do you pick your family up and move them constantly move them around, and I'm sure there's divided thoughts and split thoughts on the benefits or it that being a negative. But at the end of the day, one thing that I think is common is the military is a career. As much as it becomes a part of us and a part of our family and who we are, you have to make decisions that are best for you. I'm going to say your actual family, but you know what I mean. So I can fully understand that. When you did 7 years, by the time you got out, what was your pay grade? Because I do not know Navy rank at all. So what was where were you at pay grade wise?
I was an E5.
Okay. So,
So that's I had a young family at the time, a
yeah.
beautiful wife. We had our daughter early. So I had to make money as fast as I possibly could. So as fast as you can make rank in the Navy, from E1 to E5, I did it. So I studied my butt off and took the tests and did everything I could with my reps to make sure that my scores were good so that I could be promoted.
Gotcha.
Um,
And as an E5, were you leading other sailors? Did you have sailors that fell under you in an org chart?
Yeah, I was a production control supervisor
Okay.
for the weapons department at NAS Cecil Field, and we had 7 people that were at that location. And I did all the scheduling of the preventative maintenance and all the paperwork on those things, and paperwork on whatever aircraft might come in too
Yeah.
when I was on the ship. But yes, so I did have people underneath me and was able to successfully lead them. And when we were on the USS George Washington, I mean, we were awarded for our efficiency with our maintenance and our production control
Okay.
and everything that we did with them. So yeah, we that record stood. As a matter of fact, funny story, I bumped into my commander at a Christmas party just this last year,
Yeah.
who's a friend of a friend. And we started talking about our time in the military, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I was on the George Washington." And I told him where I was. He goes, "I remember you." And I looked at him. I'm like, "Did you have hair back then?" He's like, "Yeah." I remember you now too. But yeah, he told me that record stood for over 20 some years,
Wow.
for how awesome we did on that ship.
Huh.
Uh, and I just had great leaders above me, and I had great people that I worked with, and we all worked together to make it happen. And it's really the same thing that we do here in First Student when we're working in a transportation department.
Yeah, yeah, and you talked about your first student role and your experience coming into the company, and it sounds like you carried over Navy success into civilian success, which I think is indicative of your time in the military. That's not to say everyone in the military is successful when they go into the civilian world, but I do think that a lot of people that come out of the military find success later in their civilian career. So you made the decision to transition. I assume it wasn't the easiest of decisions. You said you would have been a career sailor. So you make that decision and you process out. Talk to me about your whole transition experience. I assume there was some fear, some uncertainty. You know, how did you handle that? How did you navigate those waters of that transition from a full-time sailor to a civilian, whatever you were going to go into? What did that look like?
Well, what stuck with me is they had a program as we were leaving the military called TAPS,
Yeah.
Transition Assistance Program. And there was a gentleman that was there teaching it, former military, retired. And he told us, and this guy's in there every day wearing a Tommy Bahama shirt and these shorts and just long hair, scruffy beard. Um, and he told a story that really stuck with me, because him and his wife lived in Maryland. His wife did some work at the Pentagon, and they were at a cocktail party.
Okay.
And here he is. He just got, just retired. He's in the same shirt, Tommy Bahama shorts. Everyone else is in, suits and ties.
Yeah.
And there was a gentleman that he was being introduced to. And the guy, apparently he didn't know this, but he owned a bunch of hotels. And what he did in the military was he was the officers' quarters
Okay.
keeper, so to speak, the leader of that. So there's a lot of people coming in, coming out. It operated just like a hotel.
Okay.
So they introduced him. They were talking. He goes, "So hey, I understand you were in the military." He goes, "Yes, sir." He goes, "What are you doing now?" He goes, "I'm retired." And the guy said, "Well, thank you very much. Thanks for your service. Good luck to you." Turns out he was talking to him because he needed a district manager for his hotels because he was getting up there in age and wanted somebody to run them.
Yeah.
And that was his interview, he said. And that always stuck with me, that just any chance meeting that he had with somebody, it
Yeah.
could potentially be an interview. So anytime I talk with somebody and they ask me what I'm doing, I go into great length and great detail about the things that we do at First Student and the great things that we do for our communities and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, so that stuck with me. So when I got out of the military, every interaction I had with everybody was an interview, in my opinion. Um, and so I was in Jacksonville, Florida at the time, and I got a job in the rent-a-car company.
Okay.
I was working there, so I was able to cut my teeth with customer service. And once again, I started out as a night manager, then became the North Florida customer service manager for Avis Rent-A-Car. Had a bunch of locations and people underneath me, and we worked well, and we did a lot of great things. And then 9/11 hit, and
Okay.
when 9/11 hit, I was 2 years out of the military. The travel industry just stopped. And
Yeah.
Florida is pretty much a tour. You're either going there to tour as a tourist, or you're going there for business.
Yeah.
Um, so everything just stopped in the world. Horrible, just a horrible event. Um, so the rent-a-car industries and the flights just stopped, and our company said, "Well, we have to lay off 2 people." So they laid off myself, who had 2 years with the company, and then another manager that had 27 years with the company, but only 2.5 as a manager.
Okay.
And there was no jobs in Florida. I found out, I'm from Michigan, born and raised in Waterford, Michigan, and there was a transportation super team leader job that was available. Um, so I called them and came in for an interview and got the job as a team leader in
Gotcha.
Michigan for that.
Gotcha.
I always told my wife, I was like, after spending 6 months away from the family out on the boat, I just want to have a job that I can kiss my kids goodnight every night. I don't
Yeah.
care what time I come home, just as long as I can kiss them goodnight every night.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
the schedule that we have. It's a Monday through Friday gig for the most part. Pretty much working, from 6 to 6, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And you got time with your family. You got times that you can plan with the scheduled breaks in the school districts.
Yeah.
You can make arrangements with family and friends and vacations, and it's been a really good fit for me.
Awesome. And you said something that stuck out to me. The story with every interaction is a potential interview. And I spend a lot of I'm a recruiter, so I basically live on LinkedIn. And you see it's reinforcing what you're saying, but a lot of the advice to transitioning service members is to be on LinkedIn and network, interact, engage, and really that's how you successfully get out of the military. And I think it's the modern version of the story that you tell of, if you are putting yourself in these positions and putting yourself in front of people and in front of communities and organizations, and, you're building your value every conversation or hurting it one way or the other. You're doing one or the other every time you talk to them. So if you approach it as it's always an interview. I think that's great advice, just because you truly never know, and especially in today's digital world where we're always online and there's so much of you on the internet that, which for you, by the way, there's not. I couldn't find any military. I tried. I'm a recruiter, so I'm typically good at finding personal details on the internet, but you're like a ghost. But anyways, I think it's important. I think that networking and that connecting and all of that is important. Um,
Yeah, and
so
any career advice that I would give to anybody transitioning out is, what you learned in the military will absolutely transfer over to our company. I mean,
yeah,
we have a lot of former military people that work within our company. I mean, not too long ago, my senior vice president, he was a retired Army lieutenant colonel. At the same time, my boss is a retired Army commander.
yeah,
Um, so at the end of the day, we love having a lot of military people in with us because we know that they have the self-discipline. We know that they understand time. We know that they understand the importance of customer service.
yep,
And the one thing I always stress at my organizations is just to take care of your people. I mean, treat them the way that you want your spouse treated at work, or the way you want your adult age kids
yeah,
to be treated at the workplace, and make your workplace the place for that people want to come to work. When you build that culture, you're working for our company, which is the absolute best in the people transportation industry. Um, and our company has such a breadth, and we're so spread out, you can transfer. But if you can just go from wherever you're at, make your location the absolute best, the best place for people to come to work, the place where people are happy to come to work
yeah,
and enjoy each other's company. Because I mean, our jobs are stressful enough, right?
yeah,
Driving 50 kids around behind you. Um, you know, in Michigan, we have deer that run out in front of in front of the buses. I'm sure in other places they have other challenges that we don't. But our jobs are stressful enough. So concentrate on the road. When you get back is when you can, kind of let it loose and you can talk to your friends and have a good time at work.
Yeah.
But don't bring that stress back with you. So build the culture at your location that your team buys into, and you keep communicating those results, good or bad, because
Yeah.
communication is key to success.
And I think another piece of our industry and it's so very tied to most veterans and service members and even their spouses is at the end of the day, first students, while we are a for-profit business, we are very community based. We are tied into these communities. I actually just had a phone screen with a driver that had been tied into that school district for 20 plus years and was looking to come back to the organization. But we interact with their kids, we interact with them as parents, we know the teachers, the administrators. So and also if you Google school bus shortage right now, you can see the impact that our business not being there has on those communities and on those parents. So I think that finding for a veteran or a transitioning service member, finding an organization that knows that community value and knows that it's tied to the community is important, because that is a driving force of service, not for everybody, and it may not be our primary, but there is a piece of anyone that wore a uniform that did it for something great, bigger than themselves. And that's not to say that first student does it to be bigger than themselves. Again, we are a business, but we are very, very much a part of the fabric of our communities that we're in. So I think everything that you said, it just, it is true. You enable your people to be successful, give them the tools, guide them, but then let them go do it. Empower them, but then step back and, like you said, the strategic vision. And that, for me, I've always been a why person, sometimes to my detriment. I always like knowing the why behind it.
Mhm.
But I think to lead in a way where you let them go be successful or fail and learn from it, I think it's important, because I think it builds better employees, better people at the end of the day. So yeah, that, I mean,
It's kind of the same, in that regard, it's kind of the same thing that, you don't necessarily, if you know they're going to fail, let them just go out and
right,
fall on their face.
right,
It's like a parent does when they take the training wheels off the bike. You put
right.
the knee pads and the helmet on. You want to give them a soft landing spot.
Yes.
But you just help them through it, because at the end of the day, this job is all about safety.
Yeah.
From our drivers to our shop technicians to the location managers. I mean, safety is woven into the fabric of who we are.
Yeah.
Um, so everyone needs to think safe, act safe, and take care of their teammates. And if you see something that could be a potential danger, you got to do something about it. So it takes the courage to step up, and we all need
Yeah.
those courageous people to come in and work for our company and be part of our staff and work with our students, and so that everyone can have the safest bus experience as possible.
100%.
So at the end of the day, yeah, you can. Sometimes people do stumble, but you want to be there to help give them that soft landing spot so that it doesn't impact safety when they are failing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that safety piece, you're right. You can't just let them fail. I think letting it be. Yeah, I mean, giving them that soft landing and letting them know that the culture is such that if I don't know, if I feel like if I'm gonna fail, I can go to someone and say, "Hey, here's my problem with X, Y, and Z," and I don't have to be scared of that conversation with my leadership. I think that having an approachable style of leadership is so important. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like Chris, you're killing it for the company. You're highly successful. You were successful in the Navy. Again, I know you guys are super busy this time of year, so for you to take what now is 30 minutes and some change out of your day to tell us your story, and give some advice. I do appreciate it. I thank you very much. And hopefully someone can hear this that is transitioning or not. Someone can hear this and find some value in it and something that they can take away to be successful. With that being said, we talked a little bit about your advice to service members, transitioning service members. What's the one takeaway that you would have for a leader coming out of the military and trying to enter the civilian world?
Well, and there's a lot of parallels that we have between the military and what we do in the people transportation industry. I mean, as we talked about, when you have some people that are about ready to fail, I
Yeah.
mean, as a location manager, you know, you still have that veto power. There's times that you have to have the courage to stand up and tell your person, hey, that's not a safe thing to do. So we're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it this way. So I think with the military, that provides you with that internal courage. I mean, you learn that throughout your entire time there and some of the stressful situations that you're in.
Yeah.
That transfers right over to being no matter what part of our organization you're going to be in, whether it's a bus driver, a mechanic, you know, a dispatcher, a router. All of those tools that you learned in the military will transfer right over because it's kind of woven into you when you're in boot camp and all through your time when you're in the military.
Yeah.
Um, so the advice I would have is, honest to God, just give First Student a try. We will be
I
a
like it.
great we will be a great spot for you to come and work. We have a lot of programs within our company that can help develop you with whatever shortcomings that you might have. There's just way too many parallels between what you did in the military and what we do that it would be an absolutely great fit. So we would love to have the opportunity to work with you. We'll set you up with people that can mentor you, support you, teach you how to do whatever it is that whatever position that you're going into. But I encourage everyone to give First Student a try because it's a fantastic company that really values their people, takes care of their people, and works their tail off to do everything they can to take care of the communities. And it's all run right through people. It's a people first organization.
Yeah. No, and I couldn't agree more. Give first a try. No, and your region is a great example of our company and the connection to the mill. So you mentioned your SVP, who is no longer with the company. You know, he was a West Point grad, and he had a passion for bringing military leaders into this company. And
Mhm.
the you know, he left an impact of locations and districts and areas in his old region that are littered with military leaders, you know. And I think that they all are. When I, as a recruiter, when I look at my regions, central region is a very strong, successful region. And I know when I'm recruiting in that region that I have leaders in every region. Central just stands out, but you know, I have hiring managers that say, I want military talent. I want military talent. And so one announcement prior to closing this out, we will be submitting our application to become an employer with the DoD skill bridge. So hopefully that will open even more doors to getting First Student in front of the military community as they make that transition, and you know, let them come intern with our company for 6 months prior to even getting out. So that's on the horizon. I don't know how long it'll take, but you know, it just speaks to our commitment to working towards being a military employer of choice. So Chris, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And yeah, continue. I wish you continued success with this startup.
And Jeremy, thanks for the opportunity to talk with you. It was absolutely my pleasure today. And for all the veterans out there, I really hope that you do, you know, heed my advice and please give First Student a try. We would love to have you, and we'll help develop you in any way that you need.
Most definitely. Couldn't agree more. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Jeremy. Have a good day.
All right. You can, Chris, you can hang up. Well, it's going to kick us out in a minute here. No,
We
thank
can
you so much. We got 5 minutes on the clock. Um, yeah, I'm not I can't, I'm so terrible at like staying on outlines. So I just kind of jump around, but again, I can edit. But thank you. I think that's awesome. One question that I do have. So I watched a video of, what's it called? Is it when you have to jump off the ship? What's that called? When you guys have the swim call or something like that? I forget what it's called.
the shellbacks or something like that.
I don't know. It's when they jump off the side into the ocean and like.
Yeah, I did not do that.
Okay, all right. I was gonna ask you because I watched the video and it terrified me. I'm terrified of the ocean. So
Dude, that's like 6 or 7 stories up above the water, and I don't know what's in that ocean, what's going to come and eat me. And no,
yeah.
I didn't do that.
No, there was a video of, I guess I don't remember which ship they're on, but they jump out of they don't jump off the top of the ship, so there's a lower access point that they jump out of. But they were shooting at a shark that had swam up, and they have like boats out there patrolling and stuff. But yeah, the Navy I couldn't have done it. I just because of the water. I'm a land guy, so. But no, I really do appreciate it.
I couldn't have did the land thing. I needed to be out there in the water,
Yeah.
and so it was a good fit for me. And like I said, there's a place for everybody in the world, right?
Yeah, 100%. Have you seen the new Top Gun?
I 3 times.
Yeah, isn't it amazing?
Dude, that was a great movie.
Amazing. Yeah.
Did a great job paying homage to the old one, but still making it their own story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely loved it.
I'll be interested to see if there's another one of you. I mean, how many of you there are in 10, 15 years that have the new Top Gun came out and it made the Navy look so cool that I went and joined. I bet it'll happen.
That would be awesome. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, that'd be very cool.
Well, hey, Jeremy, I got to jump off because I got a 3:15 I got to hit, but
Yes,
I really
sir.
appreciated the time to do this. This was really cool, and I hope it was good.
No, it was fantastic. Again, thank you so much. Go jump on that call. I appreciate it. I'll get this edited up and then it'll be posted. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, bud. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, Chris.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.